A side-by-side comparison of the first colander pours showed that colanders with holes in them tended to produce more diffuse petals, whereas those with slots produced more sharply defined one. I like the pattern but created by this colander, which is actually a sink strainer, enough to see if a few modifications would produce better results. Plugging the holes in the bottom will hopefully reduce the number of bubbles they create when the strainer is lifted off the canvas. Using the same epoxy putty to fill the holes to create a cone in the middle should help concentrate the paint on the perimeter of the strainer in the hopes that it'll come out more smoothly and faster. Let's see how it works. Speeding things up will save a lot of time. Almost right away it appeared that rather than creating cleaner petals, the faster flow increased mixing. Some of the colors are blending into each other. Worse still, the expansion of the colors isn't as uniform as it was before. It would seem my ideas of how to improve this strainer were way off. There are several petals with diffuse colors. This turned out to be caused by adding too much paint in that area so that it completely covered the slots, creating a membrane of paint through which the rest of the paint had to flow. This membrane softened the lines between the colors. This might be a useful technique for someone wanting clearly defined petals with blended colors. Pulling the strainer off the canvas was difficult because the paint sealed, creating a vacuum. Two positive results, though, are that blocking the holes did eliminate the bubble formation in the center, and if given enough time, the paint not only spreads outward, but also inward, eventually closing the center hole while preserving the petal details all the way to the center. I drilled a hole in the strainer to prevent the vacuum that held it to the canvas last time. Let's give it a try. This time I'm being careful to avoid adding so much paint that it blocks some of the slots. This seems to be preventing the blended petals seen in the first segment. Watching the paint go into the strainer, then expand outward, it appears the reason the paint doesn't spread as evenly as it did when the inside of the strainer was flat is because when it was flat and paint was added mostly near the center, by the time it had reached the slots, its level had evened out, producing a more uniform flow all the way around. So, blocking the holes is good. Building up a cone in the center, not so much. Let's try some tilting. Okay, this isn't going so well. The problem seems to be that by the time the paint had expanded to filling in the center hole, the thin coat of white paint used to prep the canvas had dried enough to inhibit flow. Also, the reduced volume in the strainer reduced the amount of paint to the point where there wasn't enough to flow easily. Oh well, that's what this series of videos is all about, showing people my mistakes in the hope that it helps them to avoid them. Thanks for watching. Next time out, I think I'll try my hand at string and chain pulls. See you then.